The rain at the cemetery wasn't just washing away the dirt on the fresh grave. It was washing away the last shred of Ilara's life as she knew it. Standing there 6 months pregnant, shivering in a black coat that no longer buttoned over her belly, she reached for her husband's hand for support. But Liam didn't squeeze back. Instead, right there, as the first shovel of dirt hit her mother's coffin, he leaned in. He didn't whisper, "I love you." He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He handed her a manila envelope that was already damp from the rain, and whispered 5 words that would freeze her blood colder than the grave beneath them. "I'm done. Sign the papers." He walked away before the service even ended, leaving his pregnant wife penniless and alone. He thought he had escaped a burden. He had no idea he just walked away from $500 million. The sky over the Blackwood Ridge Cemetery in Seattle was a bruised purple, heavy with a storm that refused to break. It was fitting. Ilara Vance felt like the atmosphere was mirroring the pressure in her chest. At 26, Ilara looked 10 years older. Her blonde hair was plastered to her forehead by the relentless drizzle, and her eyes were rimmed red, not just from the tears shed for her mother Helena, but from a sleepless week of organizing a funeral she couldn't afford. Helena Vance had been a kind woman, an artist, who painted landscapes that nobody bought. She lived in a cluttered rented cottage filled with warmth but devoid of money. When she died of a sudden aneurysm, she left Ilara nothing but a box of old paintbrushes, a cat named Barnaby, and a mountain of medical debt. Ilara shifted her weight. Her ankles were swollen. The baby kicked a sharp, restless thump against her ribs. "Easy, little one," she whispered, her hand instinctively covering her bump. She looked to her right. Liam Sterling, her husband of 3 years, stood rigid. He was wearing a bespoke Italian suit that cost more than Helena's entire car. He was checking his Rolex, a flash of gold against the grey afternoon. He wasn't crying. He wasn't even looking at the casket. He was looking at the parking lot where his silver Porsche Cayenne was parked engine, likely still warm. "Liam," Ilara whispered, her voice cracking. "Can you hold my hand? I feel dizzy." Liam didn't look at her. His jaw clenched, a muscle feathering near his ear. "Pull yourself together, Ilara. It's almost over." The priest, Father Thomas, was droning on about ashes and dust. There were only 5 people at the grave: Ilara, Liam, Helena's eccentric neighbor, Mrs. Gable, and 2 men in trench coats standing near the back, who Ilara assumed were cemetery staff. As Father Thomas raised his hand for the final blessing, Liam moved. He didn't move to comfort her. He turned his body fully toward her, blocking the view of the grave. The smell of his cologne sandalwood and expensive tobacco filled her nose, usually a scent that brought comfort, but today it made her nauseous. "Ilara," he said. His voice was devoid of emotion. It was the voice he used when firing an underperforming employee at his logistics firm. "Liam, what is it?" She looked up into his steel blue eyes, searching for sympathy. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. For a fleeting, foolish second, Ilara thought he was pulling out a tissue. He pulled out a thick, folded manila envelope. "I didn't want to do this today." He lied, his eyes flat. "But my lawyer, Arthur Pendleton, advised that since we are all here, it's best to rip the bandage off." Ilara's hands trembled as she took the envelope. "What is this?" "Divorce papers," Liam said. The world went silent. The sound of the rain, the priests mumbling, the distant traffic, it all vanished. "What?" she breathed. "I'm filing for divorce, Ilara. Irreconcilable differences." He adjusted his cufflinks. "I'm moving out today. I've already packed my things while you were at the hospital with your mother last week." Ilara felt the ground sway. Liam, I'm pregnant. We're having a daughter in 3 months. My mother just died. You can't be serious." "I am very serious." Liam snapped his facade of politeness, slipping. "Look, Elara, let's be real. This marriage hasn't worked for a long time. You're depressing. You're always tired. And your family baggage—" He gestured vaguely at the open grave. "It's too much. I'm a rising partner at the firm. I need a wife who elevates me, not one who drags me down into poverty and sadness." "Elevates you?" Elara clutched the envelope to her chest as if it were a shield. "I worked 2 jobs to put you through business school. I paid for this suit." "And I appreciate that," Liam said dismissively. "But I've outgrown you. It happens." He stepped back. "The house is in my name. You have 2 weeks to vacate. I've been generous enough to pay the rent on a studio apartment for you for 1 month. The address is in the packet." "Liam, stop!" she cried out, causing Father Thomas to pause mid-prayer. Mrs. Gable gasped, clutching her pearls. "Don't make a scene," Liam hissed. "It's undignified." "You're leaving me at my mother's funeral," Elara screamed, the shock turning into a hot, searing rage. "You monster!" Liam just shook his head, looking at her with genuine pity, not for her situation, but for her lack of composure. "This is exactly why I'm leaving Elara. You're too emotional." He turned on his heel. He didn't look back at the grave. He didn't look at the wife carrying his child. He walked straight to the silver Porsche, got in, and drove away, spraying mud onto the hem of Elara's black dress. Elara fell to her knees in the mud. The envelope slipped from her hand, the paperwork soaking up the rainwater. "Mrs. Sterling?" Father Thomas asked gently. "It's Ms. Vance," Elara sobbed, clutching her stomach. "It's just Vance now." The ride back to the city was silent. Mrs. Gable, bless her heart, had offered Elara a ride in her rusted 1998 Honda Civic. The car smelled like mothballs and peppermint. "Men are trash, dear," Mrs. Gable said, gripping the steering wheel. "My Harold was a saint, but he was the exception. That man of yours, he has the eyes of a shark." Elara couldn't speak. She stared out the window at the grey Seattle skyline. She was calculating. She had $400 in her checking account. The funeral had cost $6,000, put entirely on her credit card. She had no job. She had quit her barista position 2 months ago because the pregnancy had become high risk, and the doctor ordered bed rest. Liam had promised he would take care of everything. Liar. When Mrs. Gable dropped her off at the sleek, modern townhouse in Bellevue that she and Liam had shared, Elara hesitated at the door. She unlocked it and stepped inside. The house echoed. It wasn't just quiet. It was hollow. Liam hadn't just packed his things. He had ravaged the place. The 65-inch TV was gone. The espresso machine was gone. The expensive art on the walls gone. He had left the furniture that was too heavy to move, and the things he deemed hers, the cheap throw pillows, her books, the baby's crib. Elara walked into the kitchen. On the granite counter, where they used to drink coffee together on Sunday mornings, sat a single set of keys and a sticky note. Keys to the studio apartment. Be out by Friday. She crumbled the note. Then her phone buzzed. It was a notification from Instagram. Elara didn't know why she looked. Masochism, perhaps. It was a photo posted by Jessica Thorne. Elara knew Jessica. Jessica was the daughter of the CEO of Liam's company. She was 22, a leggy brunette who spent her time vacationing in oblivious luxury. Liam had always called her a spoiled brat and complained about having to mentor her at the firm. The photo was a selfie. Jessica was in the passenger seat of a car, a silver Porsche Cayenne. The caption read, "Finally free, road trip to Napa with my love. New beginnings. soulmate. In the corner of the frame, gripping the steering wheel, was a hand wearing a Rolex. Liam's Rolex. Ilara felt the bile rise in her throat. He wasn't just leaving her because she was depressing. He wasn't leaving her because of the stress. He was leaving her for the boss's daughter. He was monkey branching to a higher tax bracket. She sank onto the cold kitchen floor, leaning against the dishwasher. She cried until her throat was raw. She cried for her mother, who was the only person who had ever loved her unconditionally. She cried for her unborn daughter, who would grow up with a father who viewed people as stepping stones. Night fell, turning the house into a tomb of shadows. Around 9:00 p.m., the doorbell rang. Ilara froze. Had he come back? Did he have a change of heart? She pulled herself up, wiping her face, and waddled to the door. She opened it ready to scream or beg, she wasn't sure which. But it wasn't Liam. Standing on the porch were the two men in trench coats who had been at the back of the funeral service. Up close they looked serious. Expensive suits, earpieces, briefcases. "Mrs. Ilara Vance?" the older one asked. He had greying hair and a scar above his eyebrow. Yes, Ilara said, clutching the doorframe. "If you're here for the medical bills, I don't have any money. You'll have to wait." The man smiled politely. "We aren't debt collectors, Mom. My name is Silas Vane. This is my associate, Mr. Cale. We represent the Zurich Sovereign Trust." "Trust?" Ilara frowned. "I don't have a trust. You have the wrong house." "We don't," Silas said. "We are here regarding the estate of the late Helena Vance." Ilara let out a dry, bitter laugh. "The estate? You mean the box of paintbrushes, and the cat you can have them?" Silas exchanged a look with Cale. "May we come in, Ms. Vance?" "It is regarding a matter of significant sensitivity and security." "I have nothing to steal," Ilara said, stepping back to let them in. "Come in if you want." They walked into the living room, looking around at the half-empty house with analytical eyes. They sat on the sofa Liam had left behind. "Ms. Vance?" Silas began placing a briefcase on the coffee table. "How much did you know about your mother's life before she had you? Specifically her life in the late 1990s. "Not much," Ilara admitted, sitting in the armchair. "She was a traveler. She backpacked through Europe and Africa. She said she was finding herself before she settled down to be a mother." "She was doing a bit more than finding herself," Silas said. He clicked the latches of the briefcase. "Did she ever mention a man named Lord Alistair Sterling? No relation to your husband. Purely coincidental surname?" "No," Ilara said. "What about the Copperhead patent?" "No. Look, I'm tired. My husband left me today. My mother is dead. Please just tell me what this is about." Silas opened the briefcase. It wasn't full of papers. It contained a single heavy metallic cylinder and a tablet. "Your mother Helena was not just an artist," Silas said, his voice dropping an octave. "In 1998, she was a quiet partner in a software development firm based in Silicon Valley. She provided the initial algorithms for what is now the backbone of modern cloud encryption. She didn't want the fame. She wanted a quiet life. So she signed a silent partnership agreement." Ilara stared at him. "My mother. She couldn't even work the microwave properly." "A carefully crafted persona," Kyle interjected for the first time. "To protect you." "Protect me from what? From people like your husband," Silas said bluntly. "Helena cashed out her active shares 20 years ago, but she retained a 5% royalty on all back-end infrastructure usage. That money has been accumulating in a blind trust in Switzerland, compounding untouched for 25 years. Ilara felt the room spin again. "How much?" Silas tapped the tablet and slid it across the table toward her. The execution of the will was triggered the moment her death certificate was signed this morning, Silas said. As the sole heir, the assets are yours. Ilara looked at the screen. She blinked. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. Balance 512. 450 USD. 500, Ilara whispered. The air left her lungs. Million. And real estate holdings in London, Tokyo, and a vineyard in Tuscany, Silas added calmly. However, there is a condition. Ilara looked up, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. A condition? Yes, Silas said. He pulled a letter from the briefcase. It was handwritten. Ilara recognized the loopy, artistic script immediately. It was her mother's handwriting. Helena knew about your husband, Silas said gently. She didn't trust him. She had us watching him for the last 6 months. She knew he was having an affair. She knew he was planning to leave you. Ilara covered her mouth, tears springing to her eyes again. She knew, and she wanted to ensure that when you received this money, he wouldn't get a single cent. Silas leaned forward. The condition is simple, Miss Vance. You must be legally divorced. If you are still married to Liam Sterling, 30 days from now, the money remains frozen for another 5 years. But if the divorce is finalized, you get everything. And we have been instructed to provide you with the best legal team in the country to ensure he signs those papers fast. Ilara looked at the bank balance. Then she looked at the empty spot on the wall where Liam had ripped down their wedding photo. A cold, hard resolve settled in her stomach, replacing the grief. The tears stopped. He wants a divorce, Ilara whispered, a dangerous smile touching her lips for the first time that day. Oh, I'll give him a divorce. Silas smiled. Excellent. We have a car waiting. We're moving you to the Four Seasons tonight. This house is not safe, and quite frankly, it's beneath you. Ilara stood up. She placed a hand on her belly. Let's go, she said. I have a husband to destroy. Ilara woke up, not to the sound of rain, but to the hum of high thread count silence. She opened her eyes to a ceiling painted with frescoes. For a moment, she panicked, forgetting where she was. Then, the memory of the cemetery, the rain, and the $5 to $12 million bank balance crashed back into her mind. She sat up. She was in the presidential suite of the Four Seasons, Seattle. The room was larger than the entire townhouse Liam had kicked her out of. A knock came at the heavy oak door. Come in, Ilara said, pulling the silk robe tighter around her bump. Silas Vane entered, followed by a man who looked like he was carved out of granite and dressed in a suit that whispered power. Good morning, Miss Vance, Silas said, pushing a cart with breakfast fresh fruit croissants and herbal tea. I hope you slept well. We have much to do. He gestured to the man beside him. This is Marcus Kane. In legal circles, they call him the Viper. He has never lost a divorce case in 20 years. Marcus Kane didn't smile. He nodded once, a predator acknowledging a fellow hunter. He placed a leather folder on the dining table. Ms. Vance. Marcus's voice was deep, gravelly. I've reviewed the papers your husband, Mr. Sterling, handed you at the cemetery. They are frankly insulting. He's offering you a $2,000 lump sum and 1 month of rent in exchange for waiving all rights to the marital home and his retirement accounts. Ilara sat down, picking up a strawberry. He thinks I'm desperate. He thinks I'll sign anything just to survive. Exactly, Marcus said, his eyes gleaming. And that is his fatal mistake. Arrogance creates blind spots. Marcus opened his folder. Here is the strategy. The trust requires you to be divorced to access the funds. Usually a divorce in Washington state takes a minimum of 90 days. But given Mr. Sterling's cruelty at the funeral and with a few judges I play golf with, we can expedite this on the grounds of emotional distress and immediate separation. We can have this done in 48 hours. But here is the key, Marcus continued, leaning in. We need him to sign the final decree before he finds out you are worth $500 million. If he knows about the money while you are still married, he is entitled to half. Washington is a community property state. Ilara felt a chill. So I have to play the victim. You have to play the part he expects, Silas interjected. The broken, destitute wife begging for scraps. If he thinks he's winning, he won't look closely at the paperwork. Marcus slid a new document across the table. I've drafted a counter-proposal. In this version, you agree to everything he wants. You give him the house. You give him the cars. You ask for nothing in alimony. Nothing, Ilara asked. Nothing, Marcus confirmed. But in Section 14, Clause B, written in very dense, boring legal jargon, there is a total severance of future assets agreement. It states that any assets discovered, inherited or acquired by either party after the date of physical separation, which was yesterday, are solely the property of the individual, and the other spouse waives all future claims to them, regardless of when the divorce is finalized. Ilara read the text. It was dizzying. Will he sign this? He's in a rush, Marcus said, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. Silas's team did some digging. Liam is trying to close a deal on a vacation home in Napa with Jessica Thorne. He needs his credit clear and his marital status resolved to get the loan approved in his name only. He wants you gone, Ilara. He will sign anything to erase you from his life. Ilara stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the Puget Sound. She looked down at the city where she had struggled, where she had counted pennies for groceries, while Liam bought $500 shoes. She turned back to them. Her eyes were dry. Set up the meeting, she said. I want to look him in the eye when he signs it. One more thing, Silas said. He snapped his fingers. The bedroom doors opened, and a team of 3 women entered rolling racks of clothes. You can't walk in there looking like a billionaire, Silas said. You need to look like the woman he left. But perhaps a slightly stronger version. Ilara looked at the clothes. They weren't designer gowns. They were modest, worn maternity clothes, the costume of a defeated woman. Perfect, Ilara said. The conference room at Sterling and Thorne Logistics was glass-walled, overlooking the rainy city. It smelled of lemon polish and aggression. Liam sat at the head of the table, tapping a gold pen against the mahogany. Next to him sat Arthur Pendleton, his lawyer, a sweaty man with a comb-over, who looked like he was constantly nervous. On the other side of the glass, the office was buzzing. Ilara could see heads turning. She saw Jessica Thorne leaning against a copier, sipping a latte, smirking at her. Jessica waved a tiny, mocking wiggle of her fingers. Ilara gritted her teeth and walked into the room. She was wearing her old grey cardigan and leggings. She wore no makeup. She looked exhausted. Behind her walked Marcus Kane. Liam's eyes widened slightly when he saw Marcus. He knew the reputation. You hired Marcus Kane, Liam scoffed, leaning back in his chair. With what money, Ilara, did you sell your kidney pro bono? Marcus lied, smoothly sitting down and opening his briefcase. I have a soft spot for women abandoned at funerals. It's a hobby of mine. Liam rolled his eyes. Let's get this over with. I have a flight to catch. Did you sign the papers I gave you? No, Marcus said. We have a counter-offer. Liam slammed his hand on the table. I told you no alimony. I'm not supporting her deadbeat life. Relax, Mr. Sterling, Marcus said, his voice calm like deep water. My client doesn't want your money. She doesn't want the house. She doesn't want your pension. Liam paused, suspicious. What does she want? A clean break, Ilara said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was quiet, trembling slightly just as she practiced. I just want this over, Liam. I don't want to fight you. I just want to move on for the baby's sake. She pushed the document toward him. We've waived all claims to your property, Marcus explained. We've waived spousal support. In exchange, we ask for a fast-tracked decree. We want the judge to sign off today. Ilara wants to leave the state and go live with family. Liam laughed. Family? You don't have any family left. That's none of your concern, Ilara said, looking down at her hands. Arthur Liam's lawyer picked up the document. He scanned it quickly. It looks standard, Liam. Actually, it's better than standard. She's giving up her equity in the Bellevue house. That's $100,000 right there. She's giving up the house. Liam looked at Ilara, a sneer forming. Finally realized you couldn't afford the property taxes, huh? Just sign it, Liam, Ilara whispered. Arthur flipped to section 14. He skimmed the total severance of future assets clause. Because he knew Ilara was broke, he interpreted the clause as protecting Liam. He thought it meant that if Liam got a bonus next week, Ilara couldn't touch it. This is good, Arthur whispered to Liam. It protects your future earnings. Sign it before she changes her mind. Liam looked at Ilara one last time. He didn't see the fire in her gut. He saw the grey cardigan. He saw the swollen eyes. He saw a woman he had crushed. You're pathetic, Liam muttered. He uncapped his gold pen. He signed his name with a flourish. Liam Sterling. Then he pushed the papers to Ilara. She took the pen. Her hand didn't shake this time. She signed, Ilara Vance. Done, Marcus said, snatching the papers back instantly. I'll have this filed within the hour. The judge is expecting us. Good riddance. Liam stood up, buttoning his jacket. Don't call me when the baby is born. My lawyer will handle the custody arrangements, not that I want much to do with it. Ilara stood up. She felt light. The weight of the marriage was gone. The trap was shut. She looked at Liam. The act dropped. She straightened her back. She looked him dead in the eye, and the defeated wife vanished. I won't call you Liam, she said, her voice suddenly strong, clear and cold. And don't worry about custody. You won't be able to afford the lawyer to fight me. Liam frowned, confused by the sudden change in her tone. What is that supposed to mean? It means, Ilara said, picking up her cheap purse. Enjoy Napa. It's the last vacation you'll be taking for a very long time. She turned and walked out. Marcus Kane followed, pausing at the door to look at Liam. Mr. Sterling, Marcus said, you really should have read section 14 more carefully. Why? Liam demanded, a seed of doubt finally planting itself in his chest. Because, Marcus smiled, ignorance is expensive. They left the office. As they walked past the reception desk, Jessica Thorne blocked Ilara's path. She was holding her iced latte, looking Ilara up and down with disgust. So, Jessica smirked, you finally gave up. Smart move. Liam needs a woman who fits his lifestyle, not a charity case. Ilara stopped. She looked at the young, arrogant girl. Jessica, Ilara said sweetly, make sure you keep the receipt for that trip. Why jealous? No, Ilara said, leaning in close, because he's paying for it with credit he doesn't have. Ilara walked to the elevator. As the doors closed, she saw Liam storming out of the conference room, yelling at his lawyer, finally realizing something was wrong. But it was too late. The elevator descended. Where to Ms. Vance? Marcus asked. Take me to the bank, Ilara said. I have a check to write. A check? Yes, Ilara smiled. I'm going to buy the building we just left. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Sterling and Thorne Logistics. No, Ilara corrected. Just the building. The company leases the space, don't they? They do. The lease is up for renewal next month. Good, Ilara said, her eyes flashing. I think the rent is about to go up. Significantly. 3 weeks later, the rain had stopped in Seattle, replaced by a crisp, golden autumn. Liam Sterling walked into the lobby of the Meridian Tower, the glass and steel skyscraper that housed the headquarters of Sterling and Thorne Logistics. He was feeling good. The divorce decree had arrived in the mail yesterday. He was officially a single man. He adjusted his tie in the reflection of the elevator doors. Things were looking up. Sure, the Napa trip had been expensive. Jessica had insisted on staying at a $2,000 a night resort, but he was about to close a massive deal. Furthermore, the CEO, Richard Thorne. Jessica's father had given Liam a crucial task. The building had been sold to a new mysterious holding company called Helix Properties. Richard had tasked Liam with renegotiating the lease. Don't screw this up, Liam, Richard had told him that morning. The new owners are threatening a 40% rent hike. Talk them down. Show them who we are. Liam wasn't worried. He was a master negotiator. He would charm the new landlord, get the rent lowered, and secure his promotion to senior partner. He took the elevator to the top floor, the penthouse suite, where the new building owners had set up their temporary office. He checked his watch. 10:00 a.m. sharp. He walked into the reception area. It was sleek, minimalist, and smelled of expensive lilies. I'm here to see the director of Helix Properties, Liam told the receptionist. I'm Liam Sterling. Go right in, Mr. Sterling, the receptionist said, without looking up. She's expecting you? She. Good. Liam worked better with women. He flashed his winning smile, buttoned his jacket, and pushed open the double oak doors. Good morning, Liam announced, striding into the room with his hand extended. I'm Liam Sterling, representing Sterling and Thef. He froze. His hand remained extended in midair, but his voice died in his throat. Sitting behind the massive glass desk wasn't a stranger. It was Ilara. But it wasn't the Ilara he knew. It wasn't the woman in the grey cardigan with the swollen ankles. This woman was radiant. She wore a tailored cream power suit that screamed couture. Her hair was blown out in soft, expensive waves. On her wrist sat a Patek Philippe watch that cost more than his Porsche. She looked healthy, glowing, and terrifyingly calm. She didn't stand up. She didn't smile. She just swiveled her chair slightly, steepling her fingers. Hello, Liam, she said. Her voice was cool, like polished stone. Please take a seat. Liam blinked, his brain misfiring. Ilara. What? What are you doing here? Are you the assistant? He looked around for the real boss. I own the building, Liam, she said simply. Liam let out a short, confused laugh. Well, you own the Meridian Tower, Ilara. Stop playing games. Who did you sleep with to get in here? Or is this some sort of prank? Ilara pressed a button on her desk. The large screen on the wall behind her flickered to life. It displayed the deed of sale for the building dated 2 weeks ago. Owner Helix Properties. Sole proprietor Ilara Vance. Liam stared at the screen. But how you're broke. You were borrowing money for groceries a month ago. I was never broke, Liam, Ilara said, leaning forward. My mother wasn't just a painter. She was a silent partner in the tech firm that built the encryption software your company uses every single day. When she died, I inherited everything. $500 million. Liam felt the blood drain from his face. His knees buckled, and he fell into the guest chair. 500 million. And the real estate portfolio, Ilara added casually. Which includes this building. I bought it last week. Cash. Liam's mind raced. Greed, sudden and violent, clawed at his chest. 500 million. And they were married. A smile, desperate and oily, crept onto his face. Ilara, he breathed. My God, that's amazing. Why didn't you tell me we're rich? He stood up, reaching for her across the desk. Baby, this changes everything. I'm so sorry about the funeral. I was stressed, but we can fix this. We can... Sit down, Ilara commanded. The authority in her voice was so sharp it physically stopped him. We aren't anything, Liam. We're divorced. The decree was finalized yesterday. Remember? But that's just paper, Liam stammered. We were married when she died. Community property. I'm entitled to half of that inheritance. Washington is a community property state. He was already doing the math. 250 million. He could buy a jet. He could buy an island. Ilara picked up a document from her desk. It was the settlement agreement Liam had signed in the conference room. Section 14, Clause B, Ilara read aloud. Any assets discovered, inherited or acquired by either party after the date of physical separation are solely the property of the individual, and the other spouse waives all future claims to them. She looked up. You signed it, Liam. You were so eager to run off to Napa with Jessica that you signed away $250 million. Liam stared at the paper. The memory of Arthur Pendleton, telling him it protects your future earnings, echoed in his empty head. You tricked me, he whispered. You committed fraud. I did no such thing, Ilara said. I followed the terms you set. You wanted a clean break. You wanted me to have nothing. So I ensured you got exactly what you wanted, nothing. She closed the folder. Now, Mr. Sterling, on to business. You're here to renegotiate the lease for Sterling and Thorne Logistics. Liam couldn't speak. He was shaking. Your current lease expires in 30 days, Ilara said, shifting into business mode. Market rate for this area is 60 per square foot. However, given the emotional distress associated with this particular tenant, the new rate will be $100 per square foot. You can't do that, Liam shouted, finding his voice. That's a 200% increase. Richard will never agree to that. It will bankrupt the branch. Then you better start packing, Ilara said coldly. Or you can explain to your future father-in-law why you failed to secure the lease. I'm sure Jessica will be very supportive when you lose your job. Liam stared at her. He saw the woman he had discarded, the woman he had called depressing, now holding his entire life in her manicured hand. Why are you doing this? He asked, his voice breaking. Because you left me in the mud, Ilara said softly. Now get out of my building. Liam stumbled out of the office like a drunkard. He took the elevator down his heart, hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He had to fix this. He had to call a lawyer. He burst into his own office on the 14th floor, sweating. Jessica was there sitting on his desk, scrolling through TikTok. Hey, babe, she said, not looking up. Did you talk to the landlord? Daddy is asking for an update. Liam looked at her. Suddenly, she didn't look like a prize. She looked like a liability, a spoiled child who had cost him everything. Get off the desk, he snapped. Jessica looked up, shocked. Excuse me. I said get off the desk, Liam yelled. He began tearing through his files looking for the divorce papers. What is your problem? Jessica hopped down, hands on her hips. Did the meeting go bad? Bad. It was a disaster. Liam threw a stapler against the wall. The landlord is Ilara. Jessica frowned. Ilara, your ex-wife, the pregnant barista. What are you talking about? She inherited $500 million. Liam screamed, the reality finally hitting him fully. She bought the building, and I signed it all away. I signed a waiver. Jessica stared at him. Her eyes didn't fill with sympathy. They filled with calculation. Wait, she said slowly. So, she's the billionaire, and you're... What? I'm going to sue her, Liam raved. I'll get it back. I'll claim duress. But right now, Jessica clarified, you have nothing. I have my job. I have this partnership. Just then, the glass door to Liam's office opened. Richard Thorne, the CEO, walked in. He looked furious. He was holding a tablet. Liam, Richard barked. I just got an email from Helix Properties. They're raising our rent by 200% effective next month. And they attached a personal note saying that failed negotiations with Mr. Sterling are the cause. Richard threw the tablet onto the desk. You had one job, Liam. One job: charm the landlord. Instead, you pissed them off so much they're trying to evict us. Richard, please, it's personal, Liam pleaded. The owner is my ex-wife. She's doing this out of spite. Richard's face turned purple. Your ex-wife? The one you dumped at a funeral last month. That's who we're dealing with. Yes, but I can fix it. You've done enough, Richard said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. We can't afford that rent hike. We have to relocate the headquarters to Portland. Do you know how much that will cost? Millions. Richard straightened his tie. You're fired, Liam. Pack your things. Security will escort you out in 10 minutes. Fired, Liam gasped. But I'm family. I'm marrying Jessica. He turned to Jessica, looking for backup. Jess, tell him, we're getting married. Jessica looked at her father. Then she looked at Liam, sweaty, desperate, fired, and broke. She shrugged. Actually, Dad, Jessica said, examining her fingernails. We aren't engaged. We were just having fun. I think I'm done with this. He's kind of too much drama for me. She looked at Liam with a bored expression. Sorry, Liam. But I can't date a guy who gets fired by his ex-wife. It's just cringe. Jessica. Liam reached for her, but Richard stepped in between them. Don't touch her, Richard warned. Get out, Sterling. 10 minutes later, Liam stood on the sidewalk, outside the Meridian Tower. It had started to rain again. He held a cardboard box containing a few awards and a coffee mug. His phone buzzed. It was a notification from his bank. Payment declined Porsche lease. Insufficient funds. He looked up at the penthouse. He couldn't see her, but he knew she was there. Ilara. The woman he had called a burden. She was up there, warm, powerful, and free. He was down here in the rain. Alone. He sat on the wet bench, put his head in his hands, and for the first time in his life, Liam Sterling cried. Not for his wife, not for his child, but for the money he would never, ever touch. 6 months had passed since the ink dried on the divorce papers, and Seattle had traded its grey, weeping skies for the crisp, biting chill of early winter. Snow blanketed the city in a hush, softening the edges of the skyscrapers and turning the streets into monochrome ribbons. But inside the Vance Center for the Arts, everything was light, warmth, and gold. The building, a reclaimed industrial warehouse in the trendy Capitol Hill district, had been a derelict eyesore for a decade. Now it was the crown jewel of the city's cultural scene. Massive floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a gala in full swing inside. This was Ilara's vision, come to life, a sanctuary where struggling artists could live, work, and create fully subsidized by the trust that had once been a secret buried in a Swiss bank. Ilara stood on the mezzanine balcony, looking down at the sea of guests. She wore a gown of emerald silk that shimmered under the crystal chandeliers, the fabric cascading around her like liquid gem. She looked nothing like the woman who had shivered in a rain-soaked coat at her mother's funeral. Her blonde hair was pinned up in an intricate chignon, revealing diamond earrings that caught the light with every turn of her head. But the most precious thing she wore wasn't the jewelry. It was the baby carrier strapped securely to her chest, wrapped in matching emerald silk. "She's asleep," a deep voice said beside her. Ilara smiled and turned to see Silas Vane. The former intelligence operative turned estate manager looked dashing in a tuxedo, though his eyes still scanned the room with the habitual alertness of a bodyguard. "She sleeps through everything," Ilara said, looking down at the tiny sleeping face of her daughter Helena. "The string quartet, the applause, the champagne corks. She has her grandmother's ability to tune out the world." "She has her mother's resilience," Silas corrected gently. He handed Ilara a glass of sparkling water. "The board is thrilled, Ilara. The endowment you set up ensures this center will run for 50 years, even if we never sell a single painting. You've done something incredible." Ilara took a sip, her eyes misting slightly. "I just wanted to make sure no one else has to choose between their art and their survival. My mum, she died worrying about rent. No artist should die worrying about rent." "You've changed the narrative," Silas said. He paused, his expression tightening slightly. "Speaking of narratives, there's a situation downstairs." Ilara's brow furrowed. "A situation. We hired an external agency for the catering service tonight, Elite Catering." Silas explained. "They sent over a replacement server at the last minute because one of their regulars called in sick. I didn't see the roster until 5 minutes ago." Ilara felt a prickle of unease on the back of her neck. "Who is it, Silas?" Silas looked down at the crowd, his gaze fixing on a figure near the kitchen doors. "It's him." Ilara followed his gaze. The room was filled with the city's elite tech moguls, politicians, art collectors. Moving among them, balancing a silver tray of crab cakes, was a man in a white server's jacket that was slightly too tight across the shoulders. His hair, once styled in a $100 cut, was now grown out and messy. He looked thinner, haggard with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and cheap whiskey. It was Liam Sterling. Ilara's breath hitched. "Liam, he's working the floor," Silas said, his voice dropping to a low growl. "He doesn't know you're the host. The invitation just said, Vance Center. He probably thinks it's some random philanthropist. I can have security remove him before he even looks up." Ilara stared at the man who had abandoned her. She remembered the cemetery. She remembered the way he had looked at his watch while her mother was being lowered into the ground. She remembered the cruelty of his voice when he said she was depressing. She watched him now. He was forcing a smile as he offered an appetizer to a woman who waved him away without even looking at him. He looked small, defeated. "No," Ilara said, a sudden calm washing over her. "Don't throw him out. Ilara, he could cause a scene." "Let him stay," she said, smoothing the blanket over baby Helena. "I want to see him, and I want him to see me." She walked toward the grand staircase. Down on the floor, Liam Sterling was in hell. His feet ached. The cheap shoes provided by the catering company were pinching his toes, and the tray of crab cakes felt like it weighed 50 pounds. He hated this. He hated the smell of expensive perfume that reminded him of the life he used to have. He hated the way these people looked through him, as if he were just a piece of furniture. It had been a brutal 6 months. After being fired by Richard Thorne and blacklisted from the logistics industry, Liam's life had unraveled with terrifying speed. His Porsche was repossessed. His credit cards were frozen. Jessica Thorne had blocked his number the moment the news broke, moving on to a hedge fund manager before Liam had even packed his desk. He was currently living in a basement apartment in Tacoma, dodging calls from debt collectors and working double shifts for a catering company just to pay for heat. Just get through the night, he told himself. Make the tips go home, drink a beer. He turned to head back to the kitchen to refill his tray when a hush fell over the room. The chatter died down. The music softened. Liam looked up. Descending the grand staircase was a vision. A woman in emerald green, radiant and powerful, holding a baby. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. Liam blinked. He rubbed his eyes. It couldn't be. But it was. It was Ilara. But not the Ilara he remembered. This wasn't the woman in the oversized maternity sweaters. This wasn't the woman who counted coupons. This woman walked with the grace of a queen. She looked expensive. She looked happy. Liam froze. The tray in his hand tipped slightly, sliding a crab cake onto the floor. He didn't notice. She was walking straight toward him. Panic seized his throat. He wanted to run. He wanted to hide in the kitchen. But his legs wouldn't move. He was paralyzed by a toxic cocktail of shame and sudden, desperate hope. She's rich, his mind whispered. She's the one throwing this party. She has the money. Maybe she would forgive him. Maybe she missed him. They had a history, didn't they? They had a child. Ilara stopped 3 feet away from him. Silas Vane stood just behind her, his arms crossed, looking at Liam like he was a stain on the carpet. Ilara, Liam croaked. His voice was rusty. "Hello, Liam," she said. Her voice was unrecognizable. It lacked the eager-to-please tremor it used to have. It was cool, smooth, and indifferent. I didn't know," Liam stammered, gesturing vaguely at the room. You look amazing." "I feel amazing," she said simply. Liam's eyes dropped to the bundle in her arms. A tiny hand, pink and perfect, was gripping the edge of the silk blanket. "Is that—" Liam swallowed hard. "Is that the baby?" "This is Helena," Ilara said. She didn't offer to show him the baby's face. She didn't step closer. She held her daughter like a fortress holds a treasure. "Helena," Liam repeated. Tears pricked his eyes, not from love, but from self-pity. "She's named after your mother." "Yes." I'm her father, Ilara," Liam whispered, taking a half step forward. "I have a right to know her. I have a right to be in her life." The guests nearby were starting to stare. The whispers began. "Who is the waiter talking to, Miss Vance? Is he bothering her?" Ilara didn't flinch. She looked him dead in the eye. "You have no rights, Liam. Do you remember the document you signed? The one where you waived all claims to future assets? You also waived your parental rights in the initial filing because you didn't want to pay child support. You called her a burden." "I was stressed," Liam hissed, his voice rising in desperation. "I made a mistake, Ilara. Look at me. I've lost everything. I'm serving food to people I used to do business with. I'm living in a basement. Haven't I been punished enough?" He reached out a hand, his fingers trembling, reaching for her arm. "Please, give me another chance. For the baby. We can be a family. I can change." Silas Vane stepped forward, ready to intercept, but Ilara held up a hand to stop him. She looked at Liam's outstretched hand. She saw the dirt under his fingernails. She saw the cheap watch on his wrist. "You don't want a family, Liam," she said, her voice loud enough for the circle of onlookers to hear. "You want a lifeboat. You're drowning, and you want me to save you. But I'm not your savior. I'm just the ex-wife you left at a graveside." She shifted Helena's weight, pressing a kiss to the baby's forehead. "You asked if you haven't been punished enough," Ilara said softly. "But Liam, this isn't punishment. This is just your life. This is the life you built brick by brick with your own arrogance. You wanted to be free of me. You wanted to be free of the responsibility. Well, you're free." Liam looked around the room. He saw the faces of the wealthy guests, some looking at him with pity, others with disgust. He realized with a sickening jolt that he would never be one of them again. He was on the wrong side of the serving tray forever. "Elara, please," he whimpered, a single tear tracking through the grime on his cheek. "I have nothing." Elara looked at him one last time. It was a look of finality. The last thread that connected them snapped. "Then you should get back to work," she said. "I think table 4 needs more champagne." She turned her back on him. "Silas," she said, walking away. "Let's go check on the scholarship fund." "Right away, Miss Vance." Elara walked back into the warmth of the party, the emerald silk flowing behind her. She didn't look back. Liam stood there, frozen. "Excuse me," a woman in pearls said, tapping Liam on the shoulder. "My husband asked for a scotch and soda 10 minutes ago. Are you going to get it, or should I speak to your manager?" Liam looked at the woman. He looked at Elara, who was now laughing with a group of artists bathed in light. He looked down at his tray. "I'll get it right away, ma'am," Liam whispered. He turned and walked back toward the kitchen, the swinging doors swallowing him into the noise and the steam leaving the light behind him forever. Liam Sterling spent the rest of his life chasing the shadow of what he had lost. He moved from job to job, bitter and alone, telling anyone who would listen at dive bars that he was once married to the billionaire Elara Vance. But nobody believed him. To the world, he was just another man who thought he was too good for what he had until he had nothing. Elara never remarried, but she was never lonely. She raised Helena to be strong, kind, and observant. She taught her daughter that a person's worth isn't found in their bank account, but in how they treat people when it's raining at a funeral. Elara used her fortune to change lives, proving that the best revenge isn't anger, it's happiness. Liam wanted a life of luxury without the baggage of love. In the end, he got exactly what he gave an empty existence, and Elara, she got the world. Wow, talk about instant karma. It's satisfying to see Elara get her justice, but it's also a terrifying reminder of how quickly greed can blind us to what really matters. Liam walked away from a diamond because he thought it was just a rock. What would you have done if you were in Elara's shoes? Would you have given Liam a second chance, or did he get exactly what he deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal and redemption, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.